So for this session, we thought we'd do it a bit differently because this session, I think, this is matters now close to the heart. As Mugambi said, we talk about matters close to the heart. And I feel risk management and wealth protection are things that we need to take very seriously. So who was here for last year's Next Gen Summit? Who was there? Show of hands. Okay, nice. Return happy customers, I'm happy. So in that summit, we had this similar discussion with Marianne. And that session was so powerful that we thought there was one missing thing that we didn't have, a lawyer. And now this year we've added a lawyer to the conversation. Yeah? So give it up for Karen. So this time you're going to get the best because you're going to have the full deal on how to go about this from start to end. And I know by the time you're leaving here, if you're not going to be contacting the two of them, I don't know what you are about because seriously, you've not heard anything they've said. So yeah, so without further ado, I think I'd just like to ask them, we want to know a bit about them first before we get deep into the conversation. So Marianne, please just tell us a bit about yourself so that, most of these are new people, so they'd like to know about you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And it's amazing coming back here. I loved today's session and the morning session and Pauline setting up the pace, talking about how we are actually our greatest asset. The reason why we need to upskill and put so much energy in ourselves because we are the most important assets in our lives currently. And Joram went forward and spoke about how we can build businesses as entrepreneurs to, continue also building on our wealth. And also Rina, who spoke about how we can manage and continue multiplying and growing this wealth. And the one aspect a lot of us never think about in our wealth journey, because remember, our lives, from the time we're born to the time we're no longer here, we go through so much. We never think, or we don't like to think about what could possibly go wrong. And we know that life does happen to the most of us. And if you should know, Chris, I think I was talking to Karen earlier. When you gave me the date on when this session was going to be, I never thought I was going to make it. So on this very day, 4 years ago, I was happily married. I was pregnant with my second child. But at the same time, I was extremely sick. I could barely breathe. And by the next day, which is the 27th of October, I got admitted in hospital because, I had bad case of COVID. And my doctor didn't like the volume of my oxygen and was like, okay, we need to admit her. And on the 28th of October, I became a widow. I lost my husband. On Monday will be his fourth death anniversary.
So sorry about that.
No, it's okay. This is to say that when it comes to the journey that you have in life, everything can go okay. I was so happy. At that time, everything was going great, but I didn't see this coming. But it happened. Just overnight, I became a 30-year-old widow. If you look at me, most probably you might not even know that I've gone through whatever it is that I've gone through, but I've gone through so much. And I'd like to take people and talk all of you through the journey and for you to all understand, in as much as we can work so hard to create this wealth, if we do not have the right structures in place, even this wealth can disappear. We never think about it. You see, we were young. There's the things we did right, and there's the things we could have done better. So maybe I'll take you through that journey and I describe the things which I think we did right and the things which we could have done better. So I got married my mid-20s, and it was one of those almost love at first sight. So we got married really quickly, within months of meeting each other. and life was going great. We got our firstborn child. And the one thing I truly appreciate my husband for until this very day is the fact that he let me into his world and he was very open even in his financial journey. Because at that time, when I was single, I was employed, but then we got married, got a child, and we made a decision for me to be a stay-at-home mother at that time. So in as much as I was a stay-at-home mother, the way Pauline keeps on talking about how we have to upskill, my husband really pushed me to continue studying. I had my degree, but he told me even if I am a wife and I am a mother, it's still important to look at me. I still have so much to offer. So I knew that most probably this was a season, but he told me that it would be very important for me to continue being the best version of myself. So he actually invested in my education, further education. This is where now I did a lot of wealth management, because my degree is in financial mathematics. But then I was working in mergers and acquisitions before, but I really was passionate about family wealth. And my husband was also very big on legacy, so that is the area I really wanted to focus on. And the other thing that I'm grateful for, even at that time when I was a stay-at-home mom, he helped me and now register for Le Risk Africa. You'll see how now everything ends up tying together. Because at that time, he told me, even if you get one client a month, just do something. Because he kept on reminding me, you are more than a mother. You're more than a wife. You're more than a mother. You're more than a wife. I met you when you're doing some work and I know you're passionate about it. What are the things that you want me to support you in that can help you do the things that you're passionate about? So life continues, and now when it gets to now 2020, we had even started having the conversation on, setting up a will and a trust. But whoever thinks about it when you're that young, whoever thinks about, oh my God, life can really hit this hard, and tomorrow I'll wake up and I don't have my spouse. It wasn't even something that crossed my mind, because I was just enjoying my life, because I met an amazing man, we are raising a great family. And the other additional thing that I'm grateful is because he was such a visionary, we always had the money dates. We sat down having these conversations. Let me tell you guys, until today, I have our 70-year plan.
Wow.
I look at that plan sometimes and I laugh and I cry, because who would have known? But the good thing about always having the conversation with the person you love is I might not be able to do everything, but because we had put some things in writing. So again, I'll still be able to do some things. I might not be able to do others. I know the type of schools he wanted his children to go to, the type of life that he wanted to live. I just knew the things that he valued and things that were important to him. And now as we move forward, the other thing that we got just in passing was a life cover. We just did it to tick the box. We were like, okay, we have our health cover, we have our life cover, because we're very heavy in investments. My husband was big in investments. And then as we continue, and then now it hits October 2020. It was 2020 was the COVID year. He gets really, really sick. I also got sick. By the way, my doctors never thought I was going to make it, but by the grace of God, I'm here. Because they said I was very high risk because of my pregnancy. They thought I was the one who was going to go. But, life happened. The thing about even the transition that a lot of us don't think about, we never think about what happens to the person sitting on this other side. All of us, in as much as we love our families, we love our friends, when they go through, it doesn't even have to be a death. It could even be someone has gotten a critical illness. How many people are going through cancer? How many people have gone through a stroke, a disability? There's only so much the people you love can do for you. Because I'm grateful for community, because I was in hospital for about a month. My hospital bill came to 4 million. 4 million shillings. And as I said, community is amazing because a lot of people raised money for me at that time, because you see, my husband is gone, I'm in hospital, I have another child somewhere. I didn't even know who was taking care of my child at that point. It ended up being my mom. And then, so people raised, and then there's some money that was paid out by some of the people he used to work with. And the money that ended up clearing the bill was the money that came from our life cover. The one thing that I really learned, especially during that season, that has changed how it is that I plan, is because the doctor never thought I would make it, so that would have meant that both of us were not there. What would have happened to my kids? We had no structure. So nobody knows where stuff is, because we never talk. I knew about the things, but what if both of us were not there? And even regarding the life covers, we both had, but it's only the two of us who knew. So if both of us were not there, that means there will be no liquidity for my family and for my kids. I would not have put down a guardian who will take care of my children, because at that time, my daughter was 17 months, and I was pregnant. At that time, I was 32 weeks, so I had to give birth immediately, because when they gave me the news on the 28th, they were so sure I was not going to make it, so they had to get the child out. So my baby came at 31, 32 weeks. Yeah. So again, these are conversations I believe we need to be having in families, we need to be having as couples, we need even to be having as parents and children, but you're not having it. We don't like to think about it. Someone was telling me a lot of us as Africans or Kenyans are avoidants. We are escapists. We don't want to think about it. I would rather think about, how can I make this money? How can I do more? But if the foundation, the structure is not strong, it means that even that wealth that you have built will go away. Let's cross over now to the other side. Now, by the grace of God, as I said, I get better. I get out of hospital. I have no home. Yeah? Because of so many circumstances. This is why I even had to shift to Malindi, because I wanted to start afresh somewhere and just figure things out. But the good thing is that because we had some money from the life cover, I could stay for even a year trying to think about how I could move forward in life. So in as much as we had all these assets, I had no access. When life happens, what do you need? You need cash, you need money. Let me tell you, I went to my husband's, I knew of some of his accounts, so I went to the bank, and I went with our marriage certificate, I went with the death certificate, and the account number. The bank turned me back. They're like, we can't give you any money until you go through the whole process. And we know how it is in the Kenyan courts. I know she can explain how it is. It took, and remember, I have 2 young children. I was a stay-at-home mother. And I had no stream. I had no income. I was fully dependent on my husband, right? As I said, by him at least opening up and telling me about the assets, that was a very big thing, because it helped us knowing where it is that we can get and at least put it for safekeeping. And during now this process of succession, I have some ideas, because you see now during that period I also lost my memory, a big chunk of my memory because of trauma. So we try to put some of the things in our minds, we don't put things in writing, and then something traumatizing happens and you forget. And you don't even know, like, how many of us even have a list of all the assets that we own?
We don't talk about it, so we don't. Yeah.
Or, when you go and try have a conversation with your parents, who has ever tried to ask their parents to write a will? How did that conversation? Unataka kuniu. Unataka vitu zangu. But how are we going to pass legacy if we can't even be open with each other?
Yeah.
You see how it is that I'm looking at it. In as much as my husband is no longer here, I'm grateful that by him putting the plans in place has given me a sense of dignity. I did not have to go and beg anybody. I did not have to go, because you see, if he was bringing, our expenses were 200,000 a month in the house. Which friend will give you 200,000 a month cash to take care of your housing and take care of your kids?
Not even family.
Someone might have the heart and they want to help, but then they don't have the capability. Because remember, during that COVID time, everybody was going through it. So we had such amazing friends, but by us having some things in order, it allowed them to show up for us the way they could. People came so much to pray with us. They prayed with us because, again, when we think of help, we think from a financial angle, but there's a spiritual angle. By the way, I would not be sitting here if the people were not praying with me, if my loved ones were not praying with me, because it was a very dark place. People were bringing me food, doing shopping for the kids, but it was not from a place that I have to. It was something that they could do because they could. Yeah? And I believe that by us doing the best that we can to put our matters in order, it not only helps ourselves, it also helps the people around us, our families, and even the community at large, right? So it's so critical and so important when we are having the wealth creation conversation, to have the wealth protection conversation, preservation. How is this thing distributed? Because it's true, we dream of living a long life, but life is a journey. Again, not everyone maybe might pass away, but we know people who are suffering from a cancer. How are they going about it? Have you ever gone to ask, how are you dealing with this situation? What are the tools that you can put in place to make sure that even if you go through this season, there's still some level of continuity? Because you see, I believe that I've been given a second chance. And my husband's legacy will continue to live on. Because if he had not helped me by, paying for some of my studies and upskilling, or given me that encouragement, or even helped me set up this Le Risque Africa, I don't think I'll be where it is that I am today. And even the money that eventually got paid out, it was not much, but it was a seed that we put into Le Risque Africa, and it has grown into what it is today. We are very vocal in making sure that African families have the difficult conversations so that now we can ensure continuity of our legacies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. She deserves a clap. I think she's mentioned so many things. I don't know whether you guys are tracking. All right? Because it starts when one day she's happily married. 2 days later, she's a widow with a baby on the way with COVID. Then, Isitoshe, she's a stay-home mom. No source of income. Some of us would not even make it beyond that. Yeah? But what she said is she and the husband were keen on having a life cover about, they had plans. You hear it's a 70-year plan. Some of us, even 70 minutes from now, we don't know what we're going to do. We don't know, right? So some of these conversations we need to start having them, all right?
Yeah.
So they had a cover, and now she also said something, I don't know whether you caught it, though some, getting the assets was not as easy. It wasn't an easy thing. because there was also some court process in between. So what came through for her was the payout from the life cover, right?
Yeah.
And she planted that into her business for the risk.
Yeah.
So she mentioned something about having some structures in place. And I just want to hold it right there.
Okay.
Let's bring in Karen to the conversation. So Karen is an advocate, and she has a wealth of experience in this. So why is it important to have some structures in place? Maybe you can just start off by just briefly introducing yourself and then just diving into that.
Okay, so just before I introduce myself, thank you so much for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's the second time I'm listening to you, and it's still gut-wrenching listening to what you've had to go through, especially at a young age like this. I hope one day I get to experience the kind of love you got to experience, because it's rare, like he just said. Nairobi streets are rough. Anyway,
We've had.
So back to this conversation of ours, I have experienced Kenya Institute of Character Development with an A+. Anyway, so back to the conversation at hand. We were just sharing in our little corner. I got to experience another extreme. I am children's, for those guys who are familiar with that statement. Which means 2 or 3 years ago, my father fell sick. His sugar was 0. So we admit him to hospital. He is a proper African man. So tell me why the doctor is telling us he has 13 conditions. Diabetes, hypertension, gout, da-da-da-da. We're like, what? And then the next thing, we're being asked for his documentation. None of us has.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, in 20-something years of my life, I'd never gone to his office because he decided I'm not going to his office. So he stays in hospital for 1 month. You can imagine the bills that racked up. And I had to start co-parenting because I'm the firstborn. I don't know where his documentation. I'm a lawyer. Guys, the last time I had this conversation, I'm like, unataka kuniua. Just because I'm introducing this conversation of, can we consolidate your assets and create an asset portfolio? Then we come up with a will. I am an interested party, so I shall introduce you to someone, or if you have a lawyer in mind, do that. So that had to happen for him to be discharged. For me, at my young age, start bearing dialysis bills with this shift situation and all, in order for us to have that candid conversation of, so how are we going to start running things properly as a family? For a lot of you, and please answer my question, how many of you have mothers or fathers who have metallic boxes under their beds where they keep documents? Yeah, it's like a culture, a proper culture where documents are not put in a safe. Zimewekwa kwa ile box ulienda nayo high school under the bed. So now, imagine a typical scenario where, and I remember when I was in law school, I used to be told, the first class, we were asked, how many of you have wills? Of course, no hands. So I'll start with this question. How many of you have wills? We're going to start from the basics. Yours, of course, not your parents. How many of you have wills? Okay. I'll ask just one person, and please shout out. Why do you think you don't have a will at this given point? I need an honest answer.
Yeah.
Perfect. We already have our answer. Number 1 is taboo. The thought of death, especially in our African culture, is just, it can't happen. Someone else has said, I shall live, I shall not die. Faith is good, but initially in the morning we were told something. Faith without, okay, that's not a quote in the Bible. My pastor is here. Faith without action is dead. It's a scripture in the... when you make a spot pabaya, but back to the conversation. My point here is, at a young age, you need to have a will. Simple things as your phone. You know, the beauty about a will is something you can revise. It's not something permanent. So that is why it's good to have a friend who's a lawyer somewhere. Amongst your list. Anyway, have that hi. I know there are friends who've come here to support me. I shall give you a shout out after this. Importantly though, think about the assets that you have. One of the things that you'll hear Mnyindo emphasizing on is create your asset portfolio. And I think you've had that conversation throughout the day. Yeah. Understand what your asset portfolio looks like. So from your asset portfolio, actually it's an asset and liability portfolio. Yeah. So for those of you who have loans and the like, include them there. Because you're not going to leave anyone your burden. It is you who took that liability.
Yes.
It's from your estate is what you're going to settle that out of. So create your asset and liability portfolio. So the most basic aspect of protection of your wealth is a will. Under the will, there are so many things you can cover. You cover your assets, you cover your liabilities, and importantly for you who have children, it's important to appoint a guardian who's not your spouse. I repeat. Yeah. It is important to appoint a third party who's not your spouse to be the guardian of your child. This ensures that automatically after you pass on, again, God forbid, to I shall live, I shall not die, the parental responsibility passes on when your will is being enforced in court. Like she said, when it comes to the court process, if you die, there are two types of ways that a will is constituted. There's a testate way, which is you die with a will, and then without a will is intestate. If you die testate, it's simply enforcement of your will. If you die intestate is where the drama begins. Because it's not going to be done according to the way you thought. No one is there to actually say, Ati, so-and-so thought of this. There's no legal binding document, and a will must be in writing. So you die intestate. What happens to you? There are so many people who have interests, and I think we've seen this all the time. You have aunties, uncles, oh, I want this, I want that. There's no one really to come and defend your interests. And we've seen it so many times when someone dies and the next thing, our spouse is left with an empty house. Because the siblings to the deceased came and started claiming things left, right, and center. And that thing about having that metallic box, probably your drunk brother had access to it. So they come, take the titles, and transfer it to themselves. And there's no third party to actually monitor that aspect. So now let's remove that. We move to the will. You do your will, you deposit it to your lawyers, you need 2 witnesses, you need to sign. It must be in writing and executed by yourself in the presence of 2 independent witnesses who have zero interest in the will. There are so many other aspects to a will, but if you don't do that, again, your will is contested in court. So let's move to another angle. For those who have adult children, there's a different way. For example, if you have real estate. So a simpler way of protecting your interests if you have adult children is you have a piece of property somewhere. You've already identified that piece of property, you want it to divest to a specific child. Or you have like 3 pieces of property, 3 children, and you've decided, my name is Chela. So Chela will go to that property, my other brother Roji to another, and the like. So we have what in law you call joint tenancy. So joint tenancy in law provides that you can co-own that property with your child, but what we call in law the right of survivorship. So the moment you die, all the interest that you had automatically reverts to the other person, which ensures that your will is determined. One of my former bosses recently established that in law. So you cannot take it to court and contest it at all. So it's bulletproof. And there's precedents to back that up. So joint tenancy is a very simple way of protecting your interests, especially if you have a spouse or an adult child, of course, who has capacity to do that. Now let's move to the third limb. You have young children, they're not in the will, they don't want to do the will way, or you want to do it, but not necessarily. Let's say you want to protect your generation, the next generation, and the next generation. That's where the trust comes in. And I know Mnindo is going to link up. So allow me to leave the trust for her to start on, and then I complete it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think you've gone 100. So let's back it up just a bit. There's some people here who've already thought about their will and what they don't have to put on it. But the will is just, that's a misconception we have, that I must be rich to have a will. All right? So a will is simply saying, this laptop of mine that I have, it will go to so-and-so. This phone of mine, this wedding ring of mine, when it goes, it will go to so-and-so. So sometimes we tend to overthink it. But before we get there, wealth protection is much broader. I just want Marianne, maybe just take us through what to consider in wealth protection, and before we narrow down into trusts and what's involved in trusts.
Okay, when it comes to wealth protection, as you've mentioned, it's pretty wide. There is the financial tools of wealth protection, and there's the legal tools of wealth protection. I can go deeper into the financial tools because, as we all agreed, that when life happens, what you need is cash. You need access to money, because that's not the time now to run around and trying to figure things out. We want to know if life was to happen today, where can I get access to money quickly? Because if you're going through a transition, you're going through a lot of emotions. And also your mental space might not be in a good place. So you need to make sure that, okay, I have access to money immediately that I need it, because we know, okay, we're putting money in investments to grow it. This is why we have an investment portfolio. But also we have a protection portfolio, or what we call an insurance portfolio. I understand that there's this perception on insurance and people not understanding how insurance works. So I'm going to explain to you in a very simple way, in a way that maybe you might find it easier to understand. Does anybody here know about harambes? Have you participated in a harambe? So with a harambe, what happens is the unfortunate circumstance happens. Someone falls sick, someone dies. Then we all come together to contribute towards their family or to themselves, right? So that means that first of all, the circumstance happens. Then now we need to either now start a WhatsApp group or be meeting in church or meeting in someone's house so that we can be able to collect money. So that one can be quite hectic depending maybe at what point someone passed away. Or sometimes there's this thing people are calling, donor fatigue. Today, there was a harambe. Tomorrow, another harambe. 3 days from now, how do you pick who to contribute to and who not to? So you see with harambe, as I said, the crisis happens, then we try to come together to handle the crisis. But how insurance works is what I call a reverse harambe. We all know that this risk is going to happen. We know there's someone who'll fall sick. We know that there's someone who'll die. We know that someone will get a disability. The only question is who, when, and how. Nobody knows who in this room who something might happen. And if we're being realistic, we're not going to live on this earth forever. Yeah, we're not going to be taken by the chariot and fly to the heaven, right? So we all know that something will happen to somebody around this world. So with insurance, we collect the money before. So this is why you pay something called premiums. They're like, okay, we know that this risk could happen. We don't know to who. But I would rather sacrifice 40,000 shillings that I can foresee compared to an unforeseen 1.5 million. Because you see, when you get admitted in the hospital, you don't know how much the bills can go up to. So I would rather pay a 40,000 shilling premium or 30,000, and I know if life was to happen, I have access to a hospital, right? I can be seen by a doctor, compared to an unforeseen 1.5 million. If nothing happens, at the end of the year, we thank God for good health. But that 40,000 would have gone to somebody else whose family or who has gone through this situation. So that is what you should, or how you should understand insurance. Insurance is like a reverse harambe, but we're sharing this risk, more of us. It's not now maybe just all of us in this circle. Maybe now people all over the country. That's why have you ever asked yourself, why am I paying 40,000 for a 2 million shilling policy? Because that's how it works. Everybody faces a risk. We all rather put aside an amount of money we can afford. If it was to happen, whoever has been affected, whichever family has been affected, will be paid. And then all you'd have forgotten is the 40K, but you have your peace of mind. Think about it this way. The life insurance proceeds that were paid to me is a combination of so many people's premiums. Everybody contributed towards the premiums. Their families are okay, mine was not, but the proceeds came to me for me to move forward. That's how I'd like you to see how insurance works. So we can start building the protection portfolio from scratch. I think they can show the pyramid.
There are some slides that she had. Maybe they could be
The
projected.
the first slide. Yeah. So you can see there, wealth protection takes the base, because you need a very strong foundation when you're building your wealth. You can see now the investments and everything else goes on top. That is what now Rena was speaking about, or even you putting money in your business goes up there, because you are putting money aside to be able to grow and multiply. And now we want to look into wealth protection, which is now what we call our risk management strategy, our foundation, our liquidity plan. So your wealth protection is a combination of your emergency fund and insurance to make sure you have access to cash in the case of an unforeseen circumstance. So Rina had already introduced an emergency fund because, again, you could be declared redundant, or you could have a leaking roof, or you're called up country and you're told you need to come right now. Where are you going to get the money? Because if you are building your wealth through investments, you do not want to go and liquidate what it is that you're growing to be able to take care of an emergency. With emergencies, nobody knows when it can happen. So let your money continue growing through your investments, but as a smart investor, it's important to have a liquidity plan just in case life was to happen. So emergency funds are good, as I said, in case you're to lose your job, or even now for the smaller things. So again, people are different, as Rina said. For me, my number of comfort, because I'm an entrepreneur and a mother of 2, I like to have mine at 12 months worth of my expenses. I want to know that in case I cannot make an income this month, I can survive for the next year, because I can go back and calibrate myself, because again, I have the skill sets. I always say that even if I didn't have Le Risk Africa, I can create another one because of all the experiences I have and all the skill set that I have. So you need to make sure that you take care of yourself and have that landing place that you can always start. You don't have to start from scratch. You can start from somewhere. Okay, there's some emergencies that an emergency fund cannot take care of. If you're to fall sick and you need to get admitted. You see, smaller emergencies like, okay, I need to go for an outpatient procedure, like something like 5,000 to a gynecologist. That one is something I can afford. That is something I can ask Karen, and she gives me 5K. But if I'm admitted and I need 500,000, where am I going to get 500,000? And I do not want to liquidate my bonds. Again, it's also hard to liquidate, right? So I need to make sure that there's some sort of access. And for those people who don't know, in this Nairobi, or even in Kenya in general, if you don't have cash or you don't have medical insurance, they will not let you into the hospital. You will not be admitted. I've had situations where someone has been left at the reception. They've been told you have to raise 150,000. Where are you going to get 150,000? And your person is in pain. So it means now having to create a WhatsApp group immediately or calling people all over the place. So I would rather, as I said, put some money aside now, say through a medical insurance, so that in the case something like that was to happen, I have access to hospitals. And when you think also about insurance, you take insurance on things that you cannot easily you cannot easily have. You don't have that money very quickly, right? Even as an investor, as you say, to liquidate that is hard. So I would rather have insurance so that if I have a medical emergency, I can be taken care of. And nowadays, because of microinsurance and insurance companies trying to innovate, there's insurance covers as low as 6,200. There's budget covers all the way to premium covers and even international covers. And medical insurance covers are very different. It depends, again, the type of hospital you want to go to, your jurisdiction. Do you want only to be seen in the country or even outside the country? So medical insurance is very important. And then thirdly, sometimes someone could get a cancer, and medical insurance is not enough. I don't know, has any of you had the chance to go through your policy documents? How many of you have gone through your policy documents and know what you have?
Most of us, the last time you saw it was sign hapa.
Unajua, ndo maana, by the way, Chris, you see, insurance we have, we don't have the best reputation because a lot of people sign up for things maybe they don't fully understand. Or maybe someone was trying to make a quick sell, and you buy something very quickly. The way sometimes agents can be on your back. Hello, kuna ile policy ulikuwa umesema utanunua. Hello, unakumbuka ile policy ulisema utanunua? Si uangalie mtoto wako.
And it's your cousin.
And maybe it's your relative.
It's your relative. So, yeah.
So actually most people, that's how they buy policies. They buy policies to get an insurance agent out of their bags. By the way, that is not the best way to buy insurance. Because again, it will be 3 years, 4 years down the line. Maybe that time you're like, hey, let me just go through my document. And you're like, kumbe nimekoniwa, this is not what it is that I thought that I bought. But because also you did not take the chance and the time to go through the document, or even if maybe you went through it, you didn't understand and you didn't ask questions. So you're moving ahead thinking you have protection and you don't have the protection that you thought, right? Anyway, so it's always very important to go through your policy document. And as I said, within our medical covers, there's what we call sublimits. The reason why I asked you if you've gone through your policy documents, whether it's through maybe your own personal one or through work, because you might find that, yes, I have a 10 million shilling cover, but maybe the limit for cancer is only 500,000. There's many people who could go to the hospital, then you're told, hey, cover yako imeisha. Then someone's like, ay, cover yangu haijaisha, niko na 10 million. But they hadn't checked what amount is the insurer willing to pay for these conditions. You just saw the blanket 10 million. You didn't go to see the nitty-gritty. Because insurance works when it's done well, because we have enough claims that have been paid. But again, if it's not been done well, obviously you're not going to have a very good experience. And you see now, if someone only has 500,000 limit for cancer, we know that's not enough. You will be in hospital, maybe you have to be in the ICU, you are in the hospital for a long time, maybe even it's a stroke, or even kidney failure, or a coma. We don't know how long someone is going to be in there for. This is how now the bills go to the millions. This is now when we go to the next level. What we have as life insurance. And I'm going to speak a bit about life insurance because I know for the longest time, life insurance in this country has been sold like an investment plan. And I think that is where now people come in, like, this is not making sense. When you do the math is not mathing, right? So what is life insurance meant to do? A life insurance at its very core is meant to replace someone's income in the case of a death, disability, or a critical illness. That is what life insurance was created for. But again, because of innovation, now there's some covers where people add like a savings element or an investment element. So sometimes the issue with some of these covers, it might not give very good protection, neither will it give very good return. So it's very important for you to know your why before you buy a policy plan. So when it comes to the life cover, again, we all know that we are in our wealth accumulation stage. We are income providers for our families. So we have this plan, maybe our wealth accumulation plan, and we know that it will take maybe around 10 to 15 years for it to get to the level we want. But what happens if you exit in year 5? Who will continue from year 5 to 15? Because again, when you're not here, whether it's because you've passed away, if you're not here because you have a disability or you cannot work because of a cancer, how is the investment going to continue? So life insurance was created as a replacement of your economic value. There's our economic value for the rest of our life. There's an amount of money. I know everybody is priceless, but the thing is that all of us, as I said, we are going to work to create an income for our families. We're doing our investments to make money for our families. But again, we'd never know how life can turn out to be, right? So we need to make sure if someone was to exit at year 5, there is some cash that is going to be paid out to make sure that the remaining family members can continue with their lives. So you see,
maybe just if I may interrupt. So
yes,
many people don't consider life cover something important.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, there's a statistic that in Kenya only about 1.2% have taken life cover.
Even less.
It's even less.
Yeah.
I think we've increased in number. So it then begs, why don't people want to do this?
Yeah.
Because you've brought out a very good point where. Because if I have children, for example, and I do have children, and I'm imagining if I were to pass on and they would be left. You know, in African families, we tend to think my brother will step in and take care of my children, or my sister will step in and take care of my children. But what you're forgetting is they're not going to give your child the same life you
Yeah.
would have given them.
Yeah.
They're not going to take your child to the same school you are going to take them. Because there's no budget you've given them to take care of those children.
Yeah.
So if your children used to go to a particular school, now they'll be changed because now you're working within the budget of the
It's
brother.
true.
So you may affect your children in a negative way just because of you not seeing the importance of something. So sometimes it's just, I like this conversation because it's eye-opening, some of the things we rarely think about. Because to us, we are focused on how much is it costing me this month. But we are forgetting my son may have to change schools, may have to move from Nairobi to another county to live a totally different life. Yeah.
I love that, Chris, because look at it this way. Why are we making money?
Yeah, to provide a good lifestyle.
Exactly, because the money it is we are making and the wealth we are building is our children's school.
Yeah.
Right? Is our homes. So it means that if we do not protect this money, it means, as you just mentioned, these children will not continue going to the same school that they used to. And by you bringing up that point, there's a conversation I was having with one of my clients who owns a school. She was talking about this child who is in preschool, whose both parents died in a car accident. And the worst thing is, in as much as obviously the parents were doing well, but they had no structures in place. Because again, we just don't like to think about it. We just don't. It's not a comfortable conversation, because when you think of life insurance, it's almost like a combination of having the money conversation and the death conversation. Already we don't like having money conversation. It's even worse when you're now bringing in a death conversation, right? So it's rather, as we say, we're escapists. We rather not even face it. I'm like, Mungu, naomba for long, long life. With a long life, you shall satisfy us. Yeah. But again, sometimes, life happens, right? So the problem she was telling us with this child is, in as much as she was going to this amazing school, because it's now one of those top schools, the parents had not put down a guardian, the way Karen was talking about, who's the person who can take care of my children when I'm not there. Because, sometimes we think both of us will, at least even one of us will be there. What happens when both parents are not there? Who is going to live? Who do you trust? And you see, if you don't make that choice now, the courts will make that choice for you, and it will be someone you cannot even imagine taking care of your child. Let me tell you, even the way when she's talking about will, trust, I have had to put all these things in place because of my own peace of mind. But anyway, let's go back to that story of the child. So the only person who was willing to take that child, because remember, people always see children as burdens. Because look at it this way, the parents didn't leave anybody the money to take care of this child. If today someone was to leave me their children, I'm like, where am I going to get the extra money? So I think even if you're going to be a God parent, I think if we're going to have conversation on God parents and guardians, because you're saying that essentially if anything was to happen to the both of you, I'll take care of your child. Are you also giving me the money or how it is that I'm actually going to take care of your child? Because I might have to move houses to accommodate your child. I might have now to continue paying your child's school fees. Because if we don't do that, that means if I take my children to a specific school, I might have to downgrade them to now accommodate. So these are conversations we are not having the right conversations with our friends. We're not having the right conversations with our parents. So that child had to go to Shags, because that's the only person who was willing to take care of the child. Now, can you imagine the shift? You're so used to these friends, this community. Now you're being taken to a whole new community, a whole new lifestyle. So you see, even when I think about life insurance, first of all, before even thinking about it as inheritance planning, I think about it as protection planning. I have young kids, and these children are dependent on me between the age of 0 to at least 25. When they're done with university. So what happens in between? If anything happens to me between the age of 0 to 25, my children are vulnerable. And it's even worse between the age of 0 to 18 because they have no say. Who's going to speak for them in court? Right? So I truly believe it's super essential to create structures, especially for anybody who has children below the age of 18. Because after 25, if I'm not there and I've given you good education, imagine unaweza kujipanga. I've given you good education, you can sort yourself out. But when a child is growing up, then you interrupt their lives. Sometimes, you see, the reason why sometimes I'm not a big believer of only focusing on education, and most people are like education policies, education planning. You've taken care of the kids' education, but have you taken care of their food, their clothes, their shelter? How are they going to take care of that? So yes, you know that maybe in case anything was to happen, in those 18 years, your child is going to go to university. But between 0 to 18, how do you know how their lives would have turned out for even them to want to go to university? You see, those are things we don't really sit down to think about. But I've worked with so many families, and I'm sure Karen has also worked with so many families, and we see so much. Things which could easily have been avoided. And I would love for people not to think about it, oh no, I'm planning for my death. You're not planning for your death. You're just empowering your family. I like to look at it as creating a financial clone of myself. By me putting these structures, I have my trust, I have my life insurance, there's the financial part of me which will continue. That is what my husband has. It's continued even till this very day, that he might not be physically present, but he's still taking care of his family. But then when they say that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, so my husband is a good man. Yeah. Anyway, so that was now on life insurance, and there's many different types of products. There's now, even when people get a mortgage, you take something called a mortgage insurance, which is for a specific time period, because you need to make sure that in case anything was to happen to you when you're paying for your mortgage, your family can still, have the house, and the insurer will pay the bank. So the house is not taken away from them. So just think of it. It's just instant cash to help your people move forward. So even if you have all the investments that you have, let them continue to grow. You don't want them to now try and sell it quickly. You see? Because even that means that the legacy you've worked so hard to build will just disappear in an instant, right? And then there's the now more permanent covers where it lasts for life. So it means that if anything was to happen to me between my children being 0 to 25, there's still a payout. But if nothing happens to me, because at some point I will definitely pass away, it will still come to them as a cash inheritance, because it's something that will definitely happen at some point in time. So it's good. The more permanent covers like whole life are good for protection planning in the short run and inheritance planning in the long run. Even the investments, it is that, they are, you had started, maybe they can use that money to enhance that. Right.
Yeah. I'd like, because of time, I'd like to touch a bit on the trusts.
Yeah.
So what I hear is the will can also be contested.
Yes.
So if the will can also be contested, what's my next action? And I think trusts may come in as a good kind of. So tell us about trusts and what they're all about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not what is your next action, but what is the alternative? So you can have both, or you can have either or kind of situation. On a light note, when Nyundo was speaking, she said, ukifika over 25, ujipange. So in Nairobi, we say, when you're over 25, you no longer talk about my background. Yeah. It's about you.
You're the background.
You're the background now, officially. So let's be the background now. Trust is a beautiful way of protecting your assets. There are two types of trust under the law, and allow me to just get a bit technical as much as I'm on the graveyard shift. There are two types of trusts. So there are charitable trusts, which I think most of you have heard about them. And then we have now the family trust. So we're going to focus on the family trust for this. So why is a trust a better alternative to a will? A trust is not subject to probate, which means it cannot be contested in courts. The beauty about a trust, and what I like calling it and to my clients, is it's a legacy project. So when my bio was being read out, I was laughing because that was the bio I used to use when I was working for Ahmed Nasir, and I used to see drama. So you see a polygamous family coming in. There's some notion in Kiambu of how men die, kutumia steel wool. You're sitting through a meeting about how a man got the maid to be the second wife, and the house help came and killed them using steel wool. And I'm looking for the legal angle, and then the shot is here. With the second wife, they have 4 children. With the first wife, he had 11 children. He didn't leave a will. And Miss Karen Rono at 20-something years of age, help decide how they're going to distribute their assets. He's not a poor man, by the way. He probably has 210 acres in Isili. I don't understand how someone has that.
Wow.
Property in Kajiado, property in some place in Coastal, and I'm seated at the front of the boardroom and they're all looking at me and demanding a solution. And I'm like, this man from his grave, I hope he's timing, because of the messy situation he's left this entire family at. So now let's come to family trust. What does that entail? It entails 3 sets of parties. There's a settler, who is the person establishing the trust. There's the trustees, who are going to hold any assets that are going to be held within that trust. And there's the beneficiary, who the trust is meant to be for. So why I call it a legacy project is it moves from generation to generation, because the idea is to establish a tax-efficient trust, which essentially means it's a trust that the trustees sit down and come up with the solutions to it. So I happen right now to be registering a trust, but it's on behalf of one beneficiary. But one of the things that I loved about the trustees is they were very clear that we do not want it to only go to this beneficiary, but we need it to move on to her children, children. So the situation now that we have is she's talked about life insurance policies and so many other insurance ways of doing things. What happens in a trust situation is you look for the assets that you have and then you transfer it to now the trust. So a trust is an legal entity on its own. It becomes property of the trust, but for the benefit of the beneficiary. So what happens now is you can even put all those policies as part of the trust to be managed by the trustees, but for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Yeah. And it's a beautiful way of doing things because at the end of the day, it's very clear-cut. You, as the person who's still alive, your notion or how you wanted things to be divested is very clear. And it can't be contested. And the beauty about it is you'll have a body of trustees. Yeah. This body of trustees are the people who will manage the trust of you. It operates like a board of directorship, so to speak. And it has to be people, again, I repeat, third parties who have zero interest in this particular trustee. So I remember, let me use a recent case that all of you know. Our deputy president, our impeached deputy president, pulled a whole situation where he was listening to us. When my brother died, he left 3 executors. There was me, there was Geregero, and there was another person. The problem with having a will is if someone has interest in that particular will, it's very easy for it to be highly contested. And I've had situations where an objector comes and says, it's been gazetted, but there's a period of time that is given for objectors to step up and claim any interest. So objector comes into the picture and they say, one of the executors or the administrators of this particular estate has interests. So now it has to take the case back. And then something Nyindo was saying, even when it comes to, you want to pay school fees for your children and there's an account in a bank somewhere, imagine I, as your lawyer, has to go and make an application in court and tell the court, Munyindo needs 300,000 Kenya shillings for her children. Please give her access to this account. That application may or may not take 3 to 6 months to be heard if there are objectors. And imagine you needed this money very, very immediately. So that now puts you in a very difficult situation, even me as your lawyer, because I'm trying to tell you, the judge might not be sitting. You know, these Kenyan courts of ours have dramas for those guys who have any cases. The judge is not sitting, or the judge is sitting, but they're not able to give those orders. Or maybe, because of your trauma, you didn't kickstart the process you didn't petition for your letters of administration early. So there's a case where I was told, because the applicant sat on their rights of starting this petition of letters of admin early, I cannot give these orders of accessing these accounts. They'll have to wait for the entire process to run. Wow. So that puts you in a very difficult situation. And that is why now we have to introduce this particular trust situation, because the beneficiary only has to talk to the trustees in this respect. And then they make a resolution to that effect. Then the resolution is, for example, my future baby, tumpatie jina Chebet yenye nimepatiwa hapa. So, Chebet needs school fees. I'm not alive. I appointed a guardian because we assume I am smart now that I'm alone seated on this seat. The guardian of my child, the guardian ad litem, actually that's what we call it in law, is part of my trusteeship. So she just presents the school fees fee structure to the trustees. They give a resolution and they have access. Simple as that. So those are the conversations you need to have. The beauty now about having it, as a lawyer, I will register for you the trust. As per the last time we were talking, there was a slight change in the law. So last year when I think we were having this conversation and I was riled up into the conversation, you needed to register a trust under 2 acts. Those the Registered Documents Act, which meant you had to go through the Ministry of Lands. At times I wonder why we had to go through that. But again, they're assets which are real estate. So there was that wisdom. And then there was the Perpetual Trustees Act, which now is what is binding. So right now it was simplified. Instead of going through 2 acts, which would make it registration and incorporation, right now you only need to go through 1. So let me ask a very simple question. For a lot of you, when is the last time, who has accessed their e-citizen in the last 1 month? That's beautiful. So what I need you guys to do is go try and explore your e-citizen. It has a lot of things that we not necessarily sort of interfere with. The beauty about how the citizen is set, and you'll understand why I'm mentioning the citizen at this point, is you don't get, nothing will go forward until you pay for it. So you get to actually try and pinpoint and everything and experiment with it. So currently, in order for you to register a trust, it has to be under the e-citizen. So in the e-citizen, there is a manual option that you will find somewhere. And if you need to see me and just experiment with me, I have my laptop, so you can come behind the tent. I have a stand somewhere there. The beauty about it now is it's been simplified. The statutory charge is 10,000. So the only charge that you get into incur is with your lawyer, where there's so many other forms that need to be drafted. There's a petition. There's the main trust deed that now has the agreement for everything that you need to have. And that's what now is registered in manual BRS. And everything nowadays is addressed to the registrar of the business registration services. That's what I'm referring to as BRS. So everything is done on BRS. It doesn't take as long as it used to the previous time. So right now it's a bit of a short process. And I think that's what the state is trying to encourage people to do. And the beauty about a trust, it's private and confidential. So the only people who get to know what's happening are the trustees. And among the trustees, you'll just have to elect a chairperson, a treasurer, a secretary, amongst yourself, again, like a board of directors. And it's not as expensive as you think. The beauty about it, again, you have wealth managers here. I can be your wealth manager, but you have ICA Lion and all these people who can actually come into place and help you manage it and make it tax efficient. But for more information, there's a stand behind there for Chelangat Law Advocates, where you can visit me and as we continue the conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Just appreciate them. I always enjoy this conversation. We can talk for ages. Even when we're talking at lunchtime, they're already running into so many stories of life stories of things that have happened. But unfortunately for us, we've come to the end of the session for wealth protection. So I just want to appreciate Maria Nyindo for just being so open with her story. Her story is always moving, no matter how many times you hear it. And I don't think many of us would have the strength to pick up from that and to be the woman she is right now. So we really appreciate you. And Karen, thank you so much as well. Let's appreciate Karen for the insights. We've learned a lot. I hope you guys are now going to take action and ask yourself the hard questions. Do you have somebody who can take care of your children when you're gone? Do you have somebody who knows the things you own? Do you have somebody who knows where your bank accounts are? Yeah? So these are some of the tough questions we need to start asking ourselves. And it's not a taboo, guys. It's not a taboo. It's just, as she said something so powerful. It's recreating yourself to take care of your children. I think that was so powerful. I may not have quoted it exactly the same, but okay. I think you get the gist. Awesome. So thank you once more, and I hand it over back to our MC. Thank you, guys.